This episode is brought to you by Hyperice, the leader in advanced warm-up and recovery technology. They have tons of innovative products, like Venom-heated wearables to help soothe sore back muscles, Normatec compression boots to speed up recovery and increase circulation, and Hypervolt massage guns to improve mobility. Loved by athletes like Naomi Osaka and Erling Haaland. Try them yourself. Get 10% off your order with the code MOVE at hyperice.com.
This episode is brought to you by Bumble. So, you want to find someone you're compatible with, specifically someone who's ready for a serious connection, totally open to having kids in the future, is a tall, rock-climbing Libra, and loves rom-coms with vegan pizzas on Tuesdays just as much as you do. Bumble knows that you know exactly what's right for you. So whatever it is you're looking for, Bumble's features can help you find it. Date now on Bumble.
Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. All right, real quick before we get started on the show, I'm just going to talk about Treeline Academy. You've heard me say it. I can't even tell you how many times. Mark Livesay is treelineacademy.net. That's treelineacademy.net. Sign up. Use the promo code PC2020. Save yourself $20. Can't say it enough. It's awesome. Amazing. Most comprehensive e-scouting course out there. Check it out for yourself. Sign up. Use promo code PC2020. And now let's get to the show. All right, so I'm sitting here and I am talking to Mark Herzfeldt. And I got that right?
Yep, you got it. Right on.
So, Mark, I kind of saw some of the cool stuff you were doing and wanted to get you on and talk about that because I thought it was pretty cool. And it turns out, like, I guess somehow you've been following me for a little while and, like, something of yours popped up and I'm like, hey, what's this? And started digging through and I'm like, oh, we follow each other. I didn't even know. It happens a lot. I've started to notice after a certain amount of people, you get to a certain point where you don't see everything and you start missing things and you wish you could go back, but sometimes it doesn't really happen. But can you go ahead and introduce?
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah. With I'll introduce myself. Oh yeah. That's with social media and everything, and you follow people for certain reasons, and then your feed kind of probably gets a little bit manipulated, and you start liking certain things, and then you only see those, but then eventually those other you get to scrolling through, and then those other accounts show up for you too. So I'm Mark Herzfeldt. I am born and raised in the Midwest in Wisconsin, and about 5 years ago, I was basically brought up hunting and fishing with my dad and family and brother, and I was brought up hunting and fishing. Just grew to love hunting, probably a little bit more than fishing, and it's just been a passion of mine as far as bow hunting more specifically. I haven't really picked up a gun to do any hunting in a long time. And then about, I would say, 4 or 5 years ago, my family and I decided to move out to North Carolina. Uh, Climate's a little bit warmer than the Midwest. And North Carolina has kind of the best of both worlds as far as out west, you have the mountains, and if you go the other way towards the coast, you got the beaches and warm climates. And so, that's pretty much my background as far as that goes. And then just learning to hunt all over again, moving from the Midwest over here to North Carolina. You wouldn't think it, but the deer and everything are just way different. So been trying to figure out how to hunt deer out here in North Carolina for the last 4 years. So,
so when you hunted in Wisconsin, it was kind of more like agricultural, right? You were kind of,
Yeah. So that was mainly, we had family farm, not my immediate family, but my dad's cousins, and we were allowed to hunt out on their farm, and that's how I grew up, was hunting farmland. So we got to know the property really well, and from age 12 until um, let's see, just a few years ago, 5 years ago, we would hunt the family farm, and then through college and things, I was down in the Milwaukee area, and hunted a lot of the some of the public lands down that way, and I was gaining access to by knocking on doors and things like that, and yeah, so it was a lot of agriculture, um, and public land there at the end there. So yeah.
So, did you? I'm kind of curious because I remember like the property that I had that was a decent sized private chunk, and it was way better property than I ever knew of or how to even hunt at the time. But we had nicknames for all of our stands. Um, so like there was a funnel that would go through like a good cover of pine trees, and on the other side was a hedgerow, and it would funnel the deer through that. They'd take that to get out into some of the fields and stuff. So we called that the pipeline. And then there were some other ones, like the big elm was one of them. That was a big old elm that we had a tree stand in. And I'm kind of curious, did you guys have a bunch of nicknames for all your tree stands, or?
I would say it was more of this, like, based on locations on the farm. Like, you know, and it was my dad, my brother, and I. So we all kind of had our own little areas, and we all just kind of like had those areas. But we'd always, the old four-wheeler trail. So that's kind of where I hunted quite a bit, and yeah, so we did have some of that where. And it's funny, it says before you were even thought you knew how to hunt or that sort of thing. Like, we just went out and we sat every weekend afternoon, and we just hope the deer come by, and so we wouldn't really pay attention to the wind. We just go out and hunt, and that was
Yeah.
that was fun. I mean,
I used to do it too. Same thing. Just oh well, and then once you did kind of learn, like, yeah, I should probably play the wind a little bit, but you're working
mhm.
with a limited piece of property too, and it's like, oh, maybe I'll go to the elm instead of the pipeline or whatever, and you're maybe moving 100 or 200 yards opposite spot.
Right, right. Yeah, because you knew where the deer were, and you knew their patterns, and so, you know, in when hunting that property, it was, you knew eventually, like, every year I knew I would get a shot at a deer. It was just a matter of time, just put the time in, and you'd get a shot at a pretty decent buck, or at least see one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was that's where that's how I think a lot of us started out.
Yeah. Biggest buck of my life was one of the first sits that I ever sat, and my buddy's dad came out to the property um, right when my parents bought a chunk of it, and the rest of it I just had access to. And he came out and started looking around and put up some tree stands, and he was a pretty avid and good bow hunter back in the day, and he set up a couple stands, and I went and sat in one. It was like my first or second sit out, and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting. Finally the sun comes up, and it's, I mean, like, barely legal shooting light. Biggest buck I've ever seen in my life at that point in time, and still one of the biggest bucks I've ever seen that I took a shot at. And he comes along perfectly broadside. I draw back, no rangefinders back then. I think I was like 15 years old. So we're talking like 2000-ish. So, and completely miss, just right over him. It sails right over him, and he kind of stops and he looks around, and I put another arrow in and I draw back right under him. And I'm like,
Nice.
oh man. Then he takes off, and that was like the last time I ever saw him. I think somebody got him during that shotgun season or something. But it was just like the experiences like that you had no idea, or if you would have practiced or measured out trees or just known any of those things, it could have been a lot different. My story would have been a lot different.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I've got yeah, I've got similar stories, and um, yeah, we just it was a good place to hunt because you always knew it. And then on the beginning when I first was starting out, baiting was legal, so um, and that's kind of what I'm going back on, because my daughter is now 11 going on 12, and in North Carolina here you can uh, youth can start hunting, I think, pretty much any age, as long as you're with a licensed hunter or an adult. But basically, we're trying to get the bait so that the deer stop and they're nice and still. And so that's how I started out with big old bait piles, and we made sure those were good and ready for opening season and throughout the season. And then baiting kind of got taken away, and that's when you really started trying to learn how to hunt.
Yeah.
So it was and then it was more like, well, we'll just waiting for the rutting to come around, and you wait and wait for
Yeah.
that cruising deer to come by. So
I still
yeah.
take the rutcation every year. That's still my kind of thing,
Oh
But I got to ask you, did you watch on Sundays? Did you go out hunting, or were you too busy watching the Packers play?
yeah. Well, it was always a tough call, but yeah, we were out every Saturday and Sunday as much as we could. Without trying to burn up our spots too bad, because we
Yeah.
did realize that if you did go out every time into the same spot, you're gonna burn that spot out. So yeah, it was every other weekend, I would say, in the beginning, but
Yeah.
once the rutcation came around, then trying to figure out how to get out of school and go hunting.
Yeah, yeah. I never had to worry about that too much, but sick days and stuff kind of covered that. But now, unfortunately, with social media, you can't use the sick days at work, and you end up getting the booner or something, a buck of a lifetime, and then the next thing you know, you want to post it, and that wouldn't be good. So now
It's
you
true.
actually
It's true.
now you
Yeah,
actually
it's true.
have to take vacation during that time. But
Right.
so I mean, how old is your daughter? I don't know if you said how old she is.
She's 11. Yeah, so she's always come out with me. Or I always took her along when she was really young. I mean, 3, 4 years old. I was out scouting with her, and she's always just loved to come out and sit in the woods. And so this year we tried turkey hunting with a bow, and I've hunted public land for 4 years out here, and just this year finally found a lease. So we pretty much stayed on the lease because um, I didn't want to drag her through so much public land doing the walking and climbing of the hills out here, that I really want her to stay interested rather than drag her 3, 4 miles and not see anything. Well, we ended up not really seeing anything at all turkey hunting. And then this year, yeah, she's out hunting with me, archery hunting with me, and we're seeing deer, and that's just been fun to watch because she gets real excited when deer come in. And yeah, so that's what's keeping us going here as well. So I'm not even bringing my bow until she pretty much gets a shot, or we get close enough where we can get a few shots off. Maybe I'll take some vacation during the week and go out if she's got school, but that's what I'm focusing on this year.
Yeah,
So
that's good. Like you and I talked a little, earlier, a few days earlier. I don't, I don't know how I could do. I mean, my kids are still a little bit too young, I think, to do that. But how
mhm.
did you even keep her still, like when you take her out hunting with you, or I mean, just a lot of snacks or what? I mean, that's kind of what I found that works is snacks. And
Yep.
when the snacks run out, it's like game over. You better be ready to pack your stuff up and go home.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we don't. That's the other thing. Like, ground blinds are really good, because my son too. I mean, he's 8 years old, and like, I'll bring them both out and turkey hunting, and as long as they're occupied, bring books, bring um these screens or whatever, and keep them occupied for a while. But if we're only out there for an hour, that's fine. Um, because like we didn't really see much as far as turkeys this spring, but we did have a time when there were some gobblers responding to our calls, and like just to see their faces when those gobblers would respond, that was worth it right there. And I think we were only out for maybe an hour, but um, yeah, that's as far as movement goes. And ground blinds work pretty well. We are hunting from tree stands this fall, and that is the thing. Because like I'm trying to think, like when you were 11 and like can't sit still.
No, I have a hard time
So
sitting still now, you know.
right, exactly. And now with saddle hunting now, like you're just swinging up there. I have to stop myself, but yeah, like I really don't care. Like I'm on the watch for as much as I can for deer, and if we start up a conversation, we start up a conversation. And if we've got bugs and we're swatting bugs, then we try to get those away. But yeah, it's a big learning. And then we're hunting in the same tree, so just really trying to you know be right next to her and let her and coach her through the whole process as much as I can. So
I think that's probably like the most fun part, probably, or the most rewarding is being right there and watching those emotions and kind of like guiding her through that. I think that's the thing I look forward to the most.
hmm
Maybe not even the animal, but just getting them to that point, you know. And I mean, I'm sure that it's a whole nother gamut of emotions that happen once that happens with the animal too. So best of
hmm
luck with that, man, for sure. And I hope
yeah.
she's successful. That'll be pretty cool.
I, I'm hoping. I know then. I mean, she's pretty hooked right now, but I'm pretty sure that'll seal the deal as far as a hunting partner for life. So that's my
That's
goal here.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So you mentioned saddle hunting, and I'm kind of curious because, like we were mentioning a little bit earlier before the podcast, that you've got it, and it's a passion of yours that's become a pretty nice little business that you got going there. Um, so let's kind of transition into that and talk about some of the products that you have and kind of why or how you came about doing them.
Sure. Yeah. So when I first moved out to North Carolina, I mean, I was hunting mainly public land, and I'd always to be mobile hunted from a tree stand or like a climber tree stand or lock on sometimes, but climber was my main go-to. And then coming out here, the terrain is so much different. So there are some pretty decent hills that you have to climb, and um, I've hunted public land in the Midwest, but not as serious as out here. So realize that in order to find deer out here, you really do need to to do a lot of walking. And a lot of my decent areas tended to be a mile or two into these public lands. And after after hauling a climber and a backpack, and I do self film, um, that gets to be pretty heavy. And at the point that I really decided that I needed a lighter setup, which was the saddle, was I went in a couple miles and set up and up in the tree and forgot my release to my bow. And it was like, now what do you do? Right? Like, do you sit out and film, which I was probably okay with, or try to I wasn't comfortable just shooting with three fingers anymore, the compound bow. So um, I decided to pack it up, and it was early enough in the morning that I was going to go back and get my release. And but it was just at that point I was like, I need something to be as mobile as possible. So that's when I decided saddle hunting was the way to go. And then I'm an engineer, so like I mean I've watched 3D printing for quite a few years actually. And like a few years ago was when I got into 3D printing, and really just because I was really interested in it. And and I wanted to see what I could do. I always loved bringing ideas to life, basically, because you can have all these ideas, and as an engineer, you can design them up and they look great on the computer. But then once you actually can produce it pretty much in your garage or wherever you have the space to have a printer, um, those ideas pretty much can be put into use because of the materials that have come so far as printing materials. So you can basically bring an idea to life. And so then once you bring in saddle hunting and 3D printing and engineering mind that just has a lot of ideas, I would say. I don't think they're all great, but um, you can bring some of those ideas. So out of necessity, I was just starting to print things to make my saddle setup a little bit easier. So that's kind of where it started. And I started, sharing things on social media, and people were pretty interested, and it kind of just grew from there, really. I mean, um, people were asking, hey, can you make me a few of those? And yeah, it just kind of went from there, and I've just brought the ideas that I've had to life. I work with a lot of other hunters that say, hey, I've got this idea. Can you can we do something? And so I'll work with them to bring their idea to life and send it to them and try it out. And that's the way to go. So um, one of the biggest things I mentioned with the tree climber and the self filming was the camera setup. So I started out hunting from a tree stand, and camera arms were um, in my pack, and I had like a fairly decent camera arm, but the thing weighed over 10 pounds without the fluid head and camera. Um, so I thought there's got to be a better way to pack in something way lighter to hold a camera. And it started out I wanted to completely 3D print it, and realized that materials are great as far as filaments that can be printed. Um, Probably got to go up a little bit more in cost and in the printers that I have, that maybe is possible, but um, found out I couldn't 100% 3D print, and then started looking more towards um, al- aluminum, and then adding 3D printed parts onto aluminum, and basically working with a local fabricator. Came up with a pretty lightweight, less than 2 pound camera arm. So that's kind of just how the ideas keep growing, and what I do as far as the DIY bow hunting
So
part of it.
I'm kind of curious, what was the first thing that you created, and like what was the necessity or the why behind it? I'm sure it probably wasn't the camera arm, or was it?
No, no, it wasn't. The first things were just the simple clips and things you need to climb. So in a saddle, like you're completely mobile, and so I was hunting with sticks to climb the tree and a platform. Um, but as the more and more research I did around saddle hunting and climbing trees, was you can get those first two sticks up on a tree, but those other two sticks, it's nice to climb with them hanging on rather than going down to the bottom of the tree every time. And you'll find them all over the place, but just a simple um, clip with a continuous loop. I use an am steel continuous loop um, inside of a clip, and basically the you can hang your sticks on both sides of you and a platform off the back, so you can basically pull those things off your saddle as you're climbing up in the tree. And then so those simple saddle clips were it. And then once you get up in the tree, the next thing is you got to hang all your gear. So then creating some simple hooks and a bow hanger for up in the tree. And that's where it kind of started. And then from there, just refining my setup. I mean, everybody's got, when you buy a set of sticks, you've got a set of cam buckles on your sticks, whether it's cam straps, and always real figured out how to make that cam buckle hit the aluminum stick as you're putting it up. So I printed out of a rubber-like material, some silencers basically, so I slip a cover that slips over that cam buckle. So those were the first things that were kind of out of a necessity type thing as far as saddle hunting goes that I created.
No, I think that's really cool because I've seen a lot of different ways people have tried to silence buckles, whether it be putting stealth strips or some type of other felt type material on them, or
Hmm.
they put heat shrink tubing on them, and then you got to cut the heat shrink tubing. But if you accidentally slide that out of there, your webbing out of there, and it's fully out, it's almost impossible to get it back in with that heat shrink tubing on. And so I'd been looking for ways and trying to figure it out, and then I don't know where I saw it, and that wasn't even the first thing of yours I saw, but I was like, what? This is all the same guy making this stuff? And
Right.
and somebody's like, oh yeah, this is 3D printed, and it's a rubberized material, and I'm like, that's freaking awesome. Like, that is
Right.
cool. And to see, like, not only I was the only one who was thinking about it, but didn't have the background or whatever to make it happen or make it possible, but you did. And now there's like a demand for it, right? There's people that want that. I mean, that's got to be a pretty good feeling to kind of, know that you came up with it and then have people actually want it and, asking you and doing all those things. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I love that when at least when I can hear that, somebody is actually using them, and then they go out and they create a video, on around that product, doing a review around that product, and it's just, yeah, it does it makes me feel good. I mean, and it also, I like it that that's actually helping them in their hunting experience, so it's actually working for them, the way it was designed, and it's not just a crazy idea that I had, and it works for myself and my setup. And that's the other thing, is like every hunter has their own system, and that's where 3D printing really helps out, is they can they can come to me and ask, hey, can I get this here, or can I modify this design just a little bit, because my system, this is how I do it, and this is how I'm comfortable with it. So rather than just buying a standard, just say bow hanger, um, you know you can kind of customize the design on the fly for that specific individual.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's pretty cool because let's face it, most of the commercially available bow hangers suck. They just suck. They're not good. Like, I'll just say it, Muddy. They make some crap. It's it's garbage. Most of the stuff that they make for like hanging your stuff is junk.
yeah.
And like I bought a Muddy. I don't remember the name of it, but it was like where it's got the buckles on it and a slider to like tension it up, and it had like 4 or 5 plastic hooks on it, and
Yep.
you could not hang anything. Like if you put your bow on that, the hanger is like halfway sideways already, and it looks like it's about to break. The plastic on it turned white, like it was embrittled, and it was just
Sure.
terrible. And I mean, I think I paid like $18 or something stupid for that, and it's like, this is junk. And I thought to myself after I bought it, I'm like, man, I've got better webbing in my basement from previous projects that I've done, that I have with all kinds of buckles and stuff. And I'm like, I can make a better one, but I can't make a better hook. And then
Right.
here comes all these engineers and 3D printing, and what I find funny about it though is that, like, you don't get too many tree stand hunters that put hang-ons or lock-ons or ladder stands or whatever. They don't modify gear at all.
Hmm.
I mean, they just don't. I mean, what are you going to do other than maybe like something to your sticks? You might change out buckles to whatever, a rope method or whatever. But they're not going to modify the tree stand that the manufacturer made. But then here comes saddle hunters, and
Yeah.
they, even if something works absolutely perfect, somebody's going to tear it apart and put something else on it just to see if it works or works for them. It's crazy.
Yep.
I'm starting to notice, like, the more I start following, because I kind of just, bought a saddle, got in it, blah blah blah, and there was a lot of things that I thought to myself, like I made my own anchor, my own lineman's belt, and all that kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
I never really went to the extreme with modifications. But now I'm seeing all these things come out and all these people, and some of them are tried and true now, so I'm willing to use them. But I, I don't know.
Yeah, and that is a great point because like I don't know what it is, but like and I'm a DIYer, through and through, but and that's maybe why I am now liking saddle hunting and the saddle hunting crowd so much, because they're willing to do the DIY things and try new things. And I think there's definitely a limit to that as far as safety is involved, and that's one thing that I try to stress. I mean, you know, you know, when doing anything yourself, you're taking your life into your own hands as far as you're basically hanging from the side of a tree. So, there's only so far you want to go with DIY and just be careful.
I've I've seen things, and I talked about this on one of my previous podcasts that I just did. But
Hmm.
there is cringeworthy things out there that you see people doing, and you're like, "Ooh, no, just don't do that. Don't do that." And then
Hmm.
here I go and break one of my golden rules. And just the other day, I went and put some stealth tape on my carabiners, which you don't do because if there's a flaw or a crack or something, you're obviously not going to see it. But at the same time, I don't know. I kind of want to be quieter on that.
That's
So
and yeah, and I've done it too. I mean, I used the camo wrap and I've done it too to the carabiners, and now I gotta use the black ones, I guess. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's I that's the one thing that when it comes to 3D printing, I see a lot of things as far as 3D printing goes that there's no way that I'm gonna try and do that. So people always ask about 3D printed steps and even 3D printed platforms, and so I just stay away from that stuff completely because I don't want to be responsible
no.
for anybody getting hurt. So. Um, yeah. So, but yeah, there is a ton. There's a huge DIY crowd in the saddle hunting industry, and I think it's more just because it is so new to everybody that some of the gears just that is needed just isn't there yet, and the bigger companies are starting to come out with it and making it more mainstream. Um, but I think there's always uh, that thought, or there's always a place for the hunter and being customizing your own gear, because I think every hunter has their own type of system, and it works in their way. So
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool though. I mean, because I've always been like a DIY guy. My wife always
mhm.
gets on me all the time that I've got too many hobbies and crafts and whatever that I do, but it's like it all somehow ties into each other. Like I started making knives, and then I had a need to learn how to do leather work so I could make holsters. And then once I started doing the
Right.
leather work, I was like, hey, now I can make a holster for my gun rather than just a sheath for the knife. So then it kind of snowballed into that. And then, the next thing and the next thing and so on. So when that came to traditional hunting for a while there, shot a trad bow, and it was like, well,
Hmm.
now I can make all my stuff. So I made my own wraps for my handle of the bow, and I made my own string silencers out of fur that I had. And I mean, I just, went and did it all. And then I couldn't afford at the time, I couldn't afford a Safari Tough quiver. So it was like that nice soft fleece lined one. So I went and made my own. Went and got some drain pipe,
Yep.
the real lightweight PVC. And I silenced inside with felt and silenced outside. And did all that kind of stuff. And it was like, I get it, but still, like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just not confident enough in like, because I was never a rock climber or any of that kind of stuff. And I don't know. Maybe I've fallen one too many times.
Well, and to your point too, like I from a when I got into saddle hunting, I'm also pretty cheap. So making my own stuff is the way to go as far as when I'm making my own gear. Or if I look at something and say, yeah, I can make it. That's kind of the fun for me, is like that is what I enjoy doing. So I'd rather take on the project rather than just go buy it in the store, just because it's a project. So I'll spend probably twice as much as I would have paid for it at a Cabela's or someplace, but I had fun learning how it works and how to make it myself. So.
I get quite a few eye rolls and comments from my wife because she's like, the money you spent on the tooling or whatever it was in order to get to that point to where I could make whatever I did, or the time it took me to learn it or whatever, and then I do it and I make it. And she's like, you could have went out and bought like 2 of those for what you just did. And then I'm like, yeah, but now I know how to do it and I have the materials. So now it's not going to cost me anything and I'll always know how to do it. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. I can always make another one.
Yeah.
But that to me, like, I guess, I don't know if it's justification in my own head, but that's just what I look at as far as hunting in general. Like, if there's a project around hunting or gear or whatever, I'll spend the money to make it myself and have fun doing that and learn along the way. Rather than going out and just buying it sometimes.
The one thing that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Okay, because the one thing that I did build that was like a complete DIY was the Ernie platform. So I built the Ernie platform from the forums type stuff, and I was actually I do a little bit of machining, and I was going to machine my own standoffs and everything for the tree. And a buddy of mine that had a podcast, him and I were kind of messaging back and forth, and I'm like, no, you're going to see, once you see mine, you're going to like crap yourself. It's going to be so awesome, and like going back and forth and just kind of like razzing each other a little bit. And he's like, you can just buy those, right? And I'm like, no, I was going to make them. Why would I need to buy them? And then when I saw the price and figured out how long it would actually take me to do it and cost of buying the aluminum to do it, and knowing that I might screw up one before I get the 2 good ones that I needed,
yep,
I was like, okay, I'll break down. And that was like the first stuff I ever bought from Dano over at Eastern Woods Outdoors, or Double Steps.
Yep.
So I bought that stuff and then cut down my own aluminum tubing. I had that kind of stuff, and then it just kind of snowballed into the whole project, and I ended up making 2 of them. Never put them on the tree, though, because I probably wouldn't have made the second one. It wasn't stable enough. Like, no matter what you did, it could still kick out on you if you put any side pressure on it. So it wasn't what I was looking for. And then next thing you know, there I am waiting untethered until the Predator comes back in stock. And then once it finally did come back in stock, I clicked and broke down and bought it.
Yep. I mean, that's kind of the story with the camera arm as well. I mean, I put a lot. I gave up on the whole camera arm thing because I even sent out some samples to some guys to try, and I thought I really had it as far as super lightweight printed camera arm. But it never had the strength that I was hoping for. So I just stopped with it because I was like, I'm trying to reinvent the wheel here, because the big guys, they've got it figured out, and I've now realized why camera arms cost as much as they do, and you buy the features that they have, and so I just kind of stopped at it. But for some reason, I was walking through Home Depot the one time and just had an aha moment and said, I think I can make it work with this, and kind of threw together a prototype and started playing with it, and that's how that developed as well. So yeah, I've got a lot of I'll call them failures, but many learnings as well from a lot of prototypes.
So the Home Depot aluminum rack is quite expensive. You could go to an actual scrapyard and get the stuff that was leftovers from a job or something and get it and buy it for scrap weight for the
De-
aluminum. It's way cheaper.
Definitely. That's a good idea, actually. I should go and do that.
We have where we can buy new stock as well, but they also have a scrapyard. So I always ask them, I'm like, hey, did you guys get any like job site stuff in or anything like that? I always ask them first because I'm sitting there and I'll always be playing and fiddling and fingering them and trying to take the two pieces and make them slide in each other just to see what they've got there, and the different products and I mean, me and my buddies have made a lot of cool things with stuff that we went and got there, but I always ask first because sometimes they'll even have like where they cut out something where it was like aluminum staircases, and this company bought 100 of them because they needed them for an event. Then they take them for scrap. Well, they cut them up or something stupid instead of bringing them whole because then they could just sell them whatever. But so they cut them up, and now they've got all these square tubes that are 1-inch square tubes that are like 1/8 inch thick aluminum, and I'm like, hey, I'll take those,
Yep. Yep.
Many a times, like way back when I used to hunt some public land that had some trails and stuff, my buddy and I were like, we need bikes for this. So we're like, yeah, but how are we going to carry all our stuff? We didn't have like a backpack you could put all that stuff on. So the bike was the mobile unit. And so we built these big old stands because back then, what were you carrying? Either a Summit or something larger. I remember for a while there, I was hauling around like a Menards, like whatever brand Menards has, aluminum ladder stand, and I'd take it and put the pins in and stand it up and put it on the tree. But I'd have that on a rack that we made out of aluminum, and luckily my buddy could weld that stuff up, and we welded it up and bolted it to the bike. And then on the front we did bow racks, and then I think we even had like a tomahawk holder out of PVC on one of the front forks just for fun. But
holy cow,
stuff like that, and then you could
I'd love to see a picture of that.
About a year ago, I had a little bit of a flood in the barn, and I was just cleaning out stuff, and I parked it by the curb, but it sat in the barn for years after not using it. But so we had like we had nicknames for them. Like I think mine was the Rut Reaper, and his was something else. We spray painted it on him. It was pretty cool, but just doing stuff like that. I've never gone quite as far as like the stuff you're doing in the detail of it, but scrapyard is definitely the way to go for materials at least for your prototypes, But
yeah, exactly.
I got to ask you, so when you did it, was your original intention? Because I was looking, you've got it to where it's like camera arm kits, you've got it to where it's like build your own, and then you've got it to where you can actually buy it yourself. Mm-hmm. Was it your original intention to sell the entire camera arm, or was it more of a DIY?
Yeah, it was when I first came out with it. I mean, yeah, I didn't my intention wasn't actually to get with a fabricator and basically build it from everything or sell the whole thing as one unit, because I just really wanted to do the printed work. But and people, and that all just came about because I was posting things and people said, hey, I want to make my own, so can I get the printed parts, and then I can do the metal work myself. So that was kind of the first intention, was just to provide printed parts. But I actually happened to meet up with a fellow saddle hunter, Altered Fabrication, which is here in the Raleigh area of North Carolina. We were chatting on saddlehunter.com and found out he happened to be just down the street from me. So then we were talking saddle hunting, and then all of a sudden he said, yeah, I'm starting up a fabrication shop too. And I was like, oh, well, that could come in handy. If you can do the fabrication, we could actually combine on some projects. So we've got a lot of things in the works as far as combining both of our skills actually too. So a lot of things in the works as far as testing this season, and maybe we'll see how they go and coming out further. But yeah, the original intent, I mean, was just really once the 3D printing kind of took off, was just to provide the 3D printing rather than going into that. I mean, once you've got all the pieces together now, and they've been fairly consistent and fairly popular now that the season's starting. I never thought I'd be just assembling camera arms. So um, and then, so you're always looking at, is this something that I was intending to do or not? But yeah, it's been fun so far because, like we kind of had mentioned earlier, it's really cool now. I've sold a few camera arms to a lot of YouTubers out there. A lot of people have YouTube channels, hunting channels, and to see the camera arm in the back room while they're filming and being able to share their experience with a bunch of people, knowing that that camera arm was there to help them do that, it's pretty cool to see. So just helping them share their experiences with their family, with their following and everything. So makes getting up at 4 a.m. to assemble camera arms before before I go to work a little bit more worth it. So
No, that's cool. So I got to ask you then, because I was on your website and I was looking, but like we talked about, I'm a DIY guy too, and I saw
yep.
all the DIY kits are out. Is there an intention to like make parts up for that, or is it kind of just because there's such a high demand for the entire camera arm that eventually it'll catch up, or the DIY kit's no longer available?
The kits are available, and it's basically you can request it. I It's probably just my lack of programming the website that they're available. You just need to get a hold of me and let me know what you need, because yeah, so I'll print them up for you, no problem. I've got a lot of parts on hand. And if you want, I've had a lot of guys just request some more custom parts because they say, hey, I'm going to do this with my arm, and then I'll just print them up whatever they need and send them the printed parts, and then they go ahead and they make their own camera arm. That's available.
Okay,
So
well that's cool then. So now I'm not as worried because even though I bought one, I ended up breaking down and buying a camera arm. Not your camera arm, but a different camera arm. But I still want to build one. So,
right.
because you can't have just one camera arm. What do you do if you got two people out, right? You both had to have a
Right.
camera arm on the tree. So,
Well, especially because you have access to all that scrap aluminum, man, that's like gold right there.
actually, I got a buddy that tore apart a bunch of climbing sticks and cannibalized and made some of his own hybrid things and stuff like that. And him and I were talking about camera arms the other day, and he goes, "Hey, I got a bunch of old sticks. It's just the tubes for the sticks, but if you want them," he's like, "probably be like 15, $20. I'll mail them all to you." He's like, "I probably got like 8 or 10 of them." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take them. I'll take them for
Yeah.
sure." So
Definitely.
I probably got those in the mail coming, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll print you up some parts for them if you tell me the size of the tube. That's nothing. That's good.
Yeah. So no, that was not the original intention of me coming on here, but I had to razz you and ask you about that because I was looking. It was after we talked, and I was looking because I saw your camera stuff already, and then you and I talked on the phone, and afterwards I was like, yeah, maybe I'll order some stuff and I'll try and build it before we do the interview, and I looked at the website, so.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, it's all very common parts. They're common fasteners. They're simple things. So even if you get it and you want to modify it, like take it apart and reconfigure it, yeah, that's what it's there for. But it's also there for the more mobile, lightweight person as well. So
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I thought about just going and getting a bunch of Teflon washers and stuff like that and bolting my own stuff together, but I was looking at it and looked like you had some pretty cool pieces, especially for, actually attaching like your head to your pan head or swivel head or whatever you're using, attaching that kind of stuff. It looked like that was kind of where your detailed stuff came definitely into play there, and your brackets, stuff like that.
yeah, the standoff, and that's where, like, you can make your own standoff out of aluminum or print it. You're gonna save some weight there. The biggest thing I think, for this is definitely getting it tight to the tree, because you can if you don't have anything that's tight to the tree, you got to have a pretty good quality strap. Um, that's also part of it. So um, just to keep in mind when you're building your own camera arm.
So let's kind of talk about that real quick then too, because I noticed the type of strap you use is a cam buckle, right? Like it's
It's an
not.
over the center. It's an
Yeah.
over the center. Yeah, over the center OCB buckle or bolt buckle. Um, and that was mainly because, if you buy, I don't know if you buy a camera arm today, I think they all come with a ratchet strap. And so ratchet straps are noisy, but they will get you, and the reason is because they get that base really tight to the tree. It's just like a tree stand. You get that ratchet strap with it. But the OCB will get it just as tight as a ratchet strap, and you don't have that ratcheting or that noise. So it's a simple run it through twice and pull it, cam it over, um, and you'll actually have to get a good feel for it, because you can get it too tight, and I mean won't be able to physically pull the buckle over. So yeah, it gets pretty tight, so it's a nice quiet strap.
Yeah, I like that because I was looking at the one I bought, and it's definitely got ratchet straps to it, and the base is super clunky. Like it is
Mhm.
stupid clunky. And I don't know. People could probably figure out what I bought without even knowing, and no, it's not a muddy, but
Well, and that's the thing. So I I there's a lot of good arms out on the market, and I have nothing bad to say about, most of most of them, but they're just heavy. So, but you're paying for that maximum adjustability in many of them, so you can put your arm on and you can adjust it at any angle that you want, and that's the technology and the engineering that's gone into it, and it's worth the money you spend on
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know about the one I got, but
it. Sounds good.
it's just too
I
clunky.
I've seen a lot of them, just because I'm making them, but yeah, it's there are definitely lower quality arms out there.
So, I got to ask you, is there anything that you can talk about that's coming up on the horizon that's pretty cool and you're excited about, or maybe not yet?
Um, I well, I I'm pretty open with my designs as far as sharing ideas and things like that. I've always looked at there's not many strapped bow hangers out there. A lot of them screw into the tree for tree stand hunters. So for saddle hunters, you get your bow is pretty much right alongside the tree. There's no reason really to bring it out farther from the tree. But when you're in a tree stand, you like that bow out, kind of out in front of you and just ready. And so a lot of those types of bow hangers are screw into the tree, and there are a couple out there that you strap onto the tree, but I've got some ideas around that, where you can have a nice public land legal um, strap bow hanger that'll hold your bow out a little bit further. Um, so some ideas that are being tested. I don't know, how well they're they're going to be working throughout the whole season, but those are some of the things that we're working on. Just because I've got the fabricator so close. So
Nice. No, it's pretty cool. So, I think that's probably a good point here to ask you this then. If somebody wants to buy your products or get in touch with you and maybe ask you a few questions about something, or maybe even have you do some custom work or something like that, where would they get a hold of you?
the the best way would be, the two places would be my website, DIYbowhunting.com. There's a contact page on there, and I'm most active through Instagram. So you can contact me through there as well. So just message me, and we can work on your project.
Very nice. That's pretty cool, Mark. I appreciate you coming on and talking to me and sharing about your cool stuff that you got going on. And thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast with you.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.